So we are on the WSH, General Provisions Regulations. And let's have a look. How does this affect work at height? In the General Provisions Regulations, measures to be taken to prevent falls. All openings in floors of a workplace shall be securely covered or fenced, unless the nature of the work renders such covering or fencing impracticable. It means unless you have to work through that opening, it has to be covered or fenced. If securely covered means it cannot be moved and opened unnecessarily. From every staircase in a workplace or which affords a means of exit from a workplace, a substantial handrail shall be provided and maintained, which if the staircase has an open side, shall be on that side, and if the staircase has two open sides, shall be on both sides. Any open side of a staircase in a workplace shall be guarded by the provision and maintenance of a lower rail or other effective means. It means anywhere that you can fall while you're walking up the staircase, there's no excuse. It means any side. It can be both sides. You can't say that I have it on one side. You can't say it on the other side. It has to be on both sides, on all sides that a fall may take place. Every Tegel opening, similar doorway used for hoisting of lowering goods, same as described earlier. It needs to be securely fenced, provided with a secure handhold on each side. Any fencing there must be properly maintained, except for when goods and materials are being hoisted and lowered at the opening of the doorway, and shall be kept in position. It's the duty of the occupier of a workplace to comply with these 5 things. So that means that, as said earlier before, some other place that if let's say your Tegel opening is open and you are away for an hour, it needs to be closed up. It needs to be securely fenced. You cannot just leave it open. Let's have a look at its context with the construction regulations. Falling hazards shall be the duty of the occupier of a work site to take so far as reasonably practicable such measures as are necessary to comply with the regulations. At a work site where a person is liable to fall a distance of more than 2 meters. So in the construction regulations, anywhere more than 2 meters, falling hazard, you are supposed to go and comply with the regulations. Now, every open site or opening in which a person is liable to fall for more than 2 meters shall be covered and guarded by effective guardrails, barriers, or other equally effective means to prevent fall. Now, once again, do not confuse this with hazardous work at height. Do not confuse this with just work at height, whereby it is not just about the height. You know, working at height can be any height. 3 meters equals hazardous work at height. In the construction regulations, if you have a place where you're supposed to work in construction and a person is liable to fall for more than 2 meters, guardrails, barriers, and other equally effective means to prevent a fall must be provided. That's what this means. So in a work site, every guardrail, barrier, or similar means of fall protection referred to must be made of good construction, sound material, adequate strength to withstand the impact during the course of work in the work site, and be placed on the inside of the uprights and secured so as to prevent accidental displacement, and be placed so as to prevent the fall of any person. So every guardrail, barrier, or other similar means of fall prevention referred to, they may be removed where free access is required for work actually in the progress in the work site. Now that means that yes, it can be removed, but it must be for work that is actually in progress. Once again, same. So if it is not, when the work is not in progress, it is to be barricaded up. In a work site, every guardrail, barrier, or other means of fall prevention referred to, which are removed under the paragraph, shall be reinstated or replaced immediately, as mentioned earlier. So if it is after you have removed it and you don't need it anymore, you need to replace it and reinstate it. Okay? This is especially so because when access of person and movement of materials is not taking place at that particular open site or opening, you should reinstate or replace the guardrails immediately. So in the shipbuilding and ship repair regulations, now falling hazards, once again, in a shipyard, on board a ship in a harbor, If there's any open side or opening into or through which a person is liable to fall for more than 2 meters, it's the duty of the responsible person to take, so far as reasonably practicable, such measures that are necessary to comply with the regulations. Okay? Essentially, all these open sites shall be covered or guarded by effective guardrails, barriers, and other equally effective means to prevent a fall. Every guardrail, barrier, and other equally effective means of fall prevention referred to shall be of good construction, sound material, adequate strength to withstand the impact during the course of work. Should be placed inside of the uprights, secured as to prevent accidental displacement, and be placed so as to prevent the fall of any person. Now, this sounds straightforward, but you will find that in reality, there are always that minute distances between your platform and your guardrail, which is why they are always saying place it inside the uprights, because it is not true that all platforms are created equal. So every guardrail, barrier, and other equally effective means of fall prevention referred to may be removed where free access is required to work, or work is actually in progress. Same concept, so you can only remove it when you need to use it for access or work is actually in progress. And once your work is done, it shall be reinstated or replaced immediately, once the work is done and access is no longer required. Let's have a look at the risk management regulations. So the cornerstone of the new framework is risk assessment. So the key thing, it places the onus on us to go and identify and eliminate or mitigate all these residual risks. Risk assessment is the process of identifying safety and health hazards associated with work, assessing the level of risk involved, and prioritizing measures to control the hazards and reduce the risk. Risk management includes risk assessment as well as controlling and monitoring such risks, as well as communicating these risks. Risk management is the cornerstone of the WSH Act, effective since 2006. So who needs to conduct the RA, right? Every employer, self-employed person, and principal, including the contractor and subcontractor, meaning every stakeholder that needs to carry out work at a particular place needs to conduct RA. You can engage an approved risk consultant, but that doesn't take away your requirement to know what's going on for both routine and non-routine work. Now, the results of the RA must be approved and endorsed by top management, and an action plan should be prepared with timeline and responsibilities of persons for implementation of control measures. This is for the matter of accountability. So he who creates the risk needs to mitigate the risk. If you are saying that you will work in a certain way and who will be responsible for doing a certain task, it needs to be clear and it needs to be documented and it needs to be communicated. This is the risk management process, from preparation to hazard identification to risk evaluation, the risk control, record keeping, and the implementation and review of this risk management process. Now, the risk assessment, you'll hear every 3 years, you need to review it, or when there's changes in your work processes or when new information on OSH risk surfaces. All right.